Alright, so go live. We're recording on here. Got the virtual camera going. Zoom is recording. I think everything is good to go. Okay, so let me display and let's see. I should be able to turn this. You don't need to see me twice as it's showing me here, so we can get thing. Oh, but I have to. Alright, let's see. Screen share here so you can see tonight's agenda. And it's displaying there. Awesome. Okay. Anything before we get started?
Hi, Christine. I'm Justin.
Hi.
Hey, Joe. Hello, Christine. Sorry I didn't hear what you said earlier. I was changing headsets.
No worries, Tech. Getting things set up. I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think
see.
I've got everything. Everything says live and recording, and so I think everything should be good here. Is there anything you two wanted to bring up before we get started?
Not me. Got some things to share later, though.
Okay.
I would like to mention that, well, thank you for kind of helping Texas out after the big debacle.
Well, we're working on that. We're working on getting things established so we can start helping through that. So, but yes, it's going to be many. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. This is Monday, November 13th of 2023. And I am Christine Van Pelt, Nee Bundy, State Coordinator and Lead Recording Secretary. And we have on the call this evening, of course, our guest, Joe Hayes, the PTKF, and our Area 4 Postal Chief, as well as our guest Marshal at Arms, Justin, from Kentucky, and Kentucky Assembly members somewhere along the way as we go along. And so we want to go ahead and get started and take a moment to honor our Creator. All right, we'll proceed with the Bivens decision. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's call that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Is there any response to the Bivens decision for the first time? And if you are on YouTube, you can post what county on your, hopefully you'll make sure you include your name and be sure to include what county on Indiana and Kentucky you're on. And if you are a member of any agency, please post it here in the chat. Hearing and seeing none, is there any response to the Bivens decision for the second time? Hearing and seeing none, is there any response for the third and final time? Hearing none. Furthermore, anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who's being paid or coerced to be here must fully disclose their presence and purpose now and leave the premises or call. Remember, you're the public employee and it's our duty to remind you. All right, so we have myself on Gibson County for Indiana. And we have Joe's on Kentucky, Justin's on Kentucky. That was Lincoln County, right?
Correct. Lincoln County, Kentucky.
All right. Make sure, and so far I don't see anybody in the in YouTube. Okay. All right, so the topics we're going to go over is FCC free conference call versus Zoom, the first generation medical beds available, going through Anna's article 4462 about notices for state assemblies, and just briefly, it's a short list, but her articles for this past week. And then we're going to continue diving into the assembly offices with Joe. So we'll go ahead and go through all of the reminders. We cannot fail. We are willing and able to do this work physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We have resolve and determination. We walk the talk and work every day to bring the de jure into reality. We have excellent tools to complete our work. We set realistic and achievable goals. We learn and research constantly. We have a timeline of this year. It's always now. We track our progress. We measure our strengths and weaknesses. We continually improve and revise accordingly, and we conduct ourselves with peace and love. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that we have here a what the definition of classic signs of agent provocateurs and infiltrators, so that you are reminded. One, employed to associate with suspected persons and by pretending sympathy with their aims to incite them to incriminate action. And remember, they're very, very good at making sure that they look like Uncle Joe or Miss Sally from the BMV that you've known for 20 years. They want to make sure that they look like the everyday person, so that you won't realize that they're actually an agent. Infiltrator, informant, stool pigeon. That's one of the things that they're also very clear on that kind of stuff too. They'll show you that they tell on things. Definition of a lurker, one that's hidden in as if in ambush. There's a Joe on the call.
That's me.
That's you, okay. Yeah, you are.
I'm on my computer.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, then of course, what are the classic signs? And this is from one of Anna's articles. Attack the leaders, coordinator, Anna, James, attack foundational elements, paperwork, assembly process. They always seem to think that they can change the paperwork up and do things differently when they're not really sure what land and soil jurisdiction is all about yet, and they're all ready to change up paperwork and sure that they can go ahead and change that paperwork. Attack any progress made so far. Attempt to divide and conquer, gossip, accuse others of what they're actually doing themselves, so forth. All right, Indiana's mission statement. Our Indiana Assembly is dedicated to the restoration of a complete and fully operational land and soil jurisdiction state and county court system, serving the people of Indiana, the preservation of the national trust, the enforcement of the public law, the upholding of the federal constitution owed to our state and people, and repopulation of our land and soil jurisdiction, the filling of vacated public offices, and the reclamation of our material and intellectual public and private assets. To these ends, we, the living people of Indiana, have called the eligible Indiana nationals and citizen electors to assemble and to serve as jurors and officers. And we have established the process and procedure to qualify jurors and others competent to hold state citizenship and public office. We do this peacefully and without rancor in the exercise of our unincorporated powers and capacities. And is that paperwork that we hold to. So while you may be thinking we're giving you a hard time of making sure that is correct, no, we are. We're wanting to make sure that it's correct, not just so much for us, but as well as for your safety as well. And again, you haven't been on the land and soil truly to even know yet how you could be able to do that correctly. All right, value statements. We stand under the laws of nature, the laws of nature's God, the Ten Commandments, the Declaration of Independence. We accept the fiduciary responsibility of the Indiana Trust and operate under the prudent man standard, meaning that we treat our state business as if it were our own business. We keep the peace and uphold the public law. We report crime. We value each man and woman as a unique creation of our Creator and recognize them as a powerful co-creator. We willingly choose to self-govern and strive to show up as our best self in each and every experience. We do not and will not condone or participate in any form of insurrection, rebellion, or creation of armed forces other than the lawful state assembly militias operated as they are supposed to be operated within each state and our land-based Continental Marshal Service, which is our jurisdictional interface with the U.S. Marshal Service. We perform under the treaties and constitutional agreements already established and for supporting the restored American government, the reconstruction thereof, and will become responsible for the conduct of the restored Confederation and Federal Republic. Again, here are the 4 pillars that we're responsible for building here. Once all 4 pillars are standing up, because you have to stand up to be recognized, right? Once we have all 4 pillars standing up to be then we can request, well, no, we don't have to request anything. Then we are recognized. That's when we start serving the notices that to be recognized as the lawful government. But you have to stand up to be recognized. So here are, and I'm keeping that from Paul. That was his, from the coordinator call, that was his key, my key takeaway from that call was you have to stand up to be recognized. So we have the General Assembly. This is this aspect as well right now too. Provides a discussion and decision forum for intra-state business and acts as committee of the whole to decide issues of general interest, conducts elections, and provides oversight for all assembly functions. The second is the International Business Assembly, which is composed entirely of state citizens. Conducts the international and interstate business of the assembly. 3, the Jural Assembly provides the court services and oversees the grand jury, trial juries, officers, and functions of the courts. And 4, the Assembly Militia is focused on promoting public safety within the boundaries of their state and is the well-regulated militia guaranteed to each state for its internal security. All right. Again, here's a reminder of more detail of Jural Assembly and committees within the Jural Assembly, because the real work is actually done on the committees. And then, of course, here's more detail about Militia Assembly. This is where we are all able to participate to support with this. And, of course, committees that are needed for that. And our goals. Populate. I haven't updated this since the last time, but obviously we're populating all of the counties, so we've got to. This is where we were at a couple weeks ago for Indiana and Kentucky, and of course then we want to work on committees for the pillars, but we also need to start filling the roles, filling those offices, so we can start getting things moving, and of course establishing state militia as well. And I had not updated these either, but they're here as well, showing what counties have been for Indiana. All the ones in red on the map are populated, and yellow have at least spoken up, so they're in process. And of course the white, no one's spoken up. And on this chart here, those that are green represents what's in red on the map. And then here is for Kentucky. Green are those that are at least papered up, and then yellow for those that have at least that are at least saying, hey, I would like more information, or starting to give info. All right, again, a reminder of what needs to be done, and these are the specific articles about working through getting the court system set up. These are ones you want to probably even print them out, read them, reread them if you've got put it on your phone. As much as I'm trying to help you get away from that phone, if that's what helps you to be able to put it on your phone so you can be able to read it while you're out, as well, but to read them several times, let it start sinking in. It will help. All right, so we have free conference call and versus Zoom. So Zoom, the assembly has been supporting $149.90 per year, paying the annual subscription. But it still as yet has to taken off of actually really even using a lot of the features that covers that extra cost. So at this point, I could still be able to use the free plan to still do recordings, and then it not cost the assembly for that, and then go to free conference call because it does offer up to 1,000. It does give the ability to have send everyone to a waiting room so that we can make sure that the ones that are coming into the call are eligible for that particular call, as well as then we would have opportunities for larger groups to come to the call as well. It covers the first gigabyte of storage, then it's only $3 a month for 10 additional gigabytes per month. And it will certainly meet a lot of what we need. And let me switch this over to show the setting up. I've had free conference call off and on, but then for the longest time my computer wouldn't even allow me to use it. So now since I can, I'm starting to get back into that. So let me, yeah. Okay, you're showing there, but I gotta screen share it in Zoom. Okay, so here is the wall, and I already have some things up here, as well as I made sure to include the law of peace so that everyone can be able to have access to read that as well. And so we'll start the Zoom subscription does not end until January 17th. So we have time to start transitioning over and working with this for, because we're visualizing that we're going to be at least half of those 1,000.
Mhm.
That's what I'm visualizing. At least half of those 1,000 in those calls. So we're going to need the space. And Zoom is going to be way too expensive to meet it. So this will be able to help us. So, and now again, since I can actually access it and be able to do it again, so I had already had it set up, but I made sure, just did some updating, and so we'll start. I got to start. Hopefully, I can maybe talk to Joe a little bit more about how he's been using free conference call to see how I can work this a little bit more. So you might be hearing from me on that one.
So far, Christine.
I've done calls, through it, but my thing is trying to make sure we're keeping that separation that we need to, so that not just anybody is out there, but this way I can still be able to stream through YouTube as well, kind of thing. So that way, for assembly calls, being able to make sure only those that are supposed to be on the call are in it, and then we can have a little control from that aspect, but then they can still view on YouTube like they are here. But then still have the opportunity for times when it is not that limited to who all we would be able to open up to have more. Because we've got to be able to have, we've talked many a times about having a platform for town hall aspects, and this would be able to
Right.
give a little bit more for us to be able to do that. Okay, so now let me switch.
Yeah, town hall's a really great idea.
Right, so that's why I figured that free conference call would be much more beneficial for us to be able to use to meet that. Okay, let me skip back to here, and it should be up here too. Yeah, okay. All right, so like I've got here that Zoom will, the main account thing is going to expire January 17th. But I will still have the free access part so that I can be able to still do all the, because I haven't been saving any recordings to Zoom. I save them all here on my locally anyway. So that's this, I wouldn't be needing any extra space on Zoom. So there's no reason to continue paying for the service at this point. And as we start getting more and more people that are participating, Zoom, the price just goes up from there. So, all right, just wanted to bring that in that we're gonna start working in free conference call, and bear with us on hiccups through the technology of that transition. All right, so now we wanted to talk about, Anna sent an email to Terry to share for the coordinators about the first generational medical beds. Anna and some others have experienced it, and she's got some comments in here that they have done very well, and I'm sure she's going to be commenting, or if she hasn't already, on Monday, on the Monday calls. That was from the 3rd, so I'm sure she probably had a chance. But I put a little bit in here. The beds are, I went to, let me go to their site. Nope, here it is. And share that.
Yeah, Christina, I actually shared one of their PowerPoint presentations that they have. If when you go down towards the middle, you'll see it's 82 megabytes, but it's essentially a work accommodation.
Right here, healing with sound.
No, it's different. Yeah, it's in relation to everything actually.
Oh, what you're bringing?
Yeah, it's PowerPoint presentations of various sorts, and was found on this site.
Okay. So I wanted to bring this about, and in that message from Anna, let me share that again. Of course, the beds are running at $5,000 plus shipping, and Anna highly encourages each assembly to consider buying one or more to make this technology available to the members. Charge $10 a treatment for those who can afford it, and you'll quickly recoup the $5,000 plus shipping investment, while providing everyone in your assembly with amazing benefits of this technology. For those who are old, sick, in pain, or invalid as a result of injury or disease, this is a wonderful breakthrough. Help your neighbors and help yourselves. And I've got the same, she put their name, who is developed by, their contact info, but it's also on the website here. And so this is the website link here for where their website is at. I set up a separate link to go so that we can start, if anyone is interested and wants to start supporting funding to fund the first bed for Indiana. I have created a link that you can be able to go there to be able to support in any way you can, and maybe we can be the first ones to start bringing this to Indianians. And of course, one and as many as possible so that we can be able to help. We have 92 counties. And I'm sure it would recoup the investment real quick. So I created a page here with more information and the link to be able to, if you wanted to support Indiana in collecting funds to be able to get its first bed, or if you want to go to the site yourself and get one for yourself, right here.
Christine,
There's links
Christine,
right
it says at home on Indiana, but Indiana's
Misspelled.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me maybe. Oh. All right. So that is in there. As well as that I don't think I've done any other link to that page. This is a direct link to that page. I still got to put navigation on the website though as well to be able to get to it, but that will get you to it and be able to support if you're interested. Okay. So the main thing I wanted to go through for this evening is Anna's article 4462 about notices for state assemblies, because we were going on sending out notices to get things going. First round of notices for Indiana went out right away. And then, of course, that should be something that, we should have been able to do on a recurring thing as that reminder. But funding for postage didn't always come through for those added notices. But the original round had gone through at the beginning. But then there's things that we've got to take care of first. And this is what Anna is wanting us to know. So as our state assemblies, we have to complete these steps. It is appropriate for them to elect an assembly chairman, speaker pro tem. So it's important that we get this in. This office will not be fully operational until the state assembly successfully completes the assembling process, but can begin operating in terms of general assembly functions. This is because it's appropriate for notices sent to the corporation employees to be sent out by each assembly under the seal of the assembly and the signature of their elected state assembly chairman, not the coordinator. Okay? So that means that's one of the first ones we really need to get, because they're not going to pay attention to the coordinator at this point. They want an assembly chairman, the elected state chairman. Likewise, these notices should not carry the Great Seal, as this is correspondence occurring at the state level from the state to the state of state. So it can be under the seal of the assembly, but not include the Great Seal. Notices such as those sent to the state of state announcing the restoration of the state common law courts should be sent to the United States Secretary of State, the United States Attorney General, the state of state governor, the state of state Secretary of State, and the state of state Attorney General. If our assemblies or their members are having trouble with any agency personnel acting out of school, they need to assess which level of government is responsible for that agency and respond by contacting the governor and state of state Secretary of State in the case of state level misunderstandings and harassments. Example, out of control state franchise tax boards, state highway patrols, etc., or contacting the federation via their coordinator if the agency causing trouble is a federal contractor or pretending to be a federal contractor. Okay? So here are steps outlined exactly. We need a chairman, the speaker. They're going to operate in terms of General Assembly functions. And then would be able to sign for the notices, where I, as the coordinator, am not the one to sign the autograph these letters. And then she even lists exactly who the letters are, those notices are to go to. Okay? Pretty clear, cut and dry. And how members are to be able to, how they're supposed to handle if they're being harassed. Okay? In that same article, I wanted to point out, she says, we are functioning in our proper birthright status as living people and lawful people holding general jurisdiction on the land and soil and air pertaining to our established boundaries and borders. So we want to make sure we keep that as a focus whenever we're out and about and trying to deal with things out there. The only role for coordinators in any of this is to inform the Federation of trespasses against state assemblies or their members by federal agencies having or pretending to have delegated authorities. Okay? It is therefore important for state leaders to thoroughly know and study the respective federal constitutions so that they know when a trespass by federal agencies involved a delegated or non-delegated power. Which in the Wednesday calls, we're going through the Constitution with Brent Allen Winters. I'm not sure which version, I'll have to look it up for the version that we're on with him. But that's starting with one of the constitutions, and you'll be able to see on the Assembly website, the Indiana Assembly. If you go in the top toolbar, I have links to each of. I'll go ahead and share. It has links to each of the constitutions, including the two constitutions for Indiana. So let me screen share to show. Here. You'll hover over status correct, read. Here's the declaration, and then here is constitutions. Here's the 1787, 1789, 1790, and the 1816 and 1851 for Indiana. All right. So if the trespass involves a non-delegated power, it can be forwarded to the United States Secretary of State and United States Inspector General directly, though it would be most effective to engage the Federation of States as a witness of the state assembly action. Okay. So that's a brief of that article, but here is the link for it, and that gives you some step-by-steps of what's important and what needs to be done now. And here are the list of articles for this week, includes this one that we just went through. And I sent an email out and posted an article on at homeonindiana.org. The Please Be Thoughtful article. All right, so let me see, was that everything I had clicked up? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay, and I updated the PDF of the officers that we went through last week, Joe.
All right, look at that.
Cleaned it up, got things corrected up here. And I went ahead and added state recording secretary.
All right, yeah. And secretary, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because the secretary and state recording secretary serve two different roles.
Right. Well, Christine, let me defer to Marshall Justin there because he wasn't able to attend the meeting last time. So if you would kind of open this up to what we did, you and I.
Okay, so.
For any questions you might have.
All right, so last week these are all some of the main official assembly roles needed from state level and county level, and they're color coded as to their connections. So of course, the blues are going to be from the malicious and peacekeeper aspect. And then you have the marshal at arms, moderator, continental marshal. Those are state level of peacekeepers of sorts. Well, the moderator would have to be too, I would imagine. And then we have the green are the committee aspects as well, that would embody committees to be able to support the different elements. And of course they're connected, like notary, justice, jurors, counselor at law, bondsman. That's all the Jural Assembly. And then the blues, militia, blues and yellows for militia and peacekeeper, and reds for general assembly aspect. And
Perfect.
then
yeah, and so for my ongoing participation as a special guest on these meetings, I'll be focusing on the light blue, dark blue kind of areas there, and I can share concepts that the peacekeeping task force is focused on, and I can screen share also the PKTF site updates in relation to these.
Okay.
But I'm just curious. So my understanding so far is that the group effort between Indiana and Kentucky is kind of merging the assets that Indiana has that Kentucky might need, and vice versa. So that would be your perspective, Christine, as a coordinator and recording secretary. I guess you could. I'd be happy to share that. And then what Marshall Justin has been able to cover down as an interim, I guess, coordinator filling in for that role, and a full-term state-elected marshal at arms. So, and then we could share that back and forth, I guess. I'm just interested in hearing that exchange between both of you. I can always lean into the receiving end of what the Jural Assembly provides, and absolutely the Assembly militia. I can always lean into that, in addition to what you guys share amongst yourselves. So I yield.
Well, so far at this point, it's the getting those that are in process. I've started sending them out emails so that they can start seeing where to go for information, where to get their paperwork, and it includes Justin's information to then connect with him when they're ready to get their paperwork dealt with. And then every once in a while, when there's something that, for an announcement to go out for Kentucky. So to some aspects, that's coordinator support. But it's also giving the highlights of the recording secretary aspect prior to getting to Justin. So hopefully some of that will be, some of the pressure from that will be off of him by the time they get to him with presenting their paperwork. But so far, that's really what we've been able to try and have time to iron out. And of course, the support on YouTube, or with the live aspect of comments and things like that's helped too. So, But again, we haven't really had much time with life as well.
Well, Christine, I did share in an email with you. It was and Justin will definitely benefit from hearing those discussions. It was sent to me by the Ohio State Chief Continental Marshal, which Anna was attended the call. It was just a couple days ago.
Right.
But they have some growing pains that they're going through. I've seen it before. I've seen them come and go, and most assemblies I've seen through these hard times always come out the other end stronger. You know, and they fully admit that. So that's what Ohio was going through, and so I sent that to you. I don't know if you.
Yes, I got the email, but I had not had an opportunity yet to listen to it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll send that to Justin, and he can see how their marshal arms handled the riff. It was just multiple layers of misunderstandings and some animosities built up beyond that. You know how it goes. Yeah. And virtual meetings always lends itself to those vulnerabilities. You know.
Yeah, agree.
Go ahead, Justin.
I'm interested in seeing that because I think it was 2 coordinator calls ago, a woman on Ohio was expressing her concern and requesting help through that. So yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm sorry I'm not catching up on myself.
Well, I can just kind of give you some of the talking points, and I'll definitely send that to you. But what it is Ohio's pretty far ahead with a lot of. I mean, there was upwards of 70 folks on that call alone. I believe it was actually yesterday. It might have been just yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, and Anna, it was 3 hours 55 minutes the first cut, and I think an hour and 15 or 18 minutes the second cut. But after the majority of those, while the marshal at arms was trying to keep an even keel on the call. I don't know, maybe after 45 or 50 minutes of them tripping over themselves, it finally seemed to settle down as to what the problem was, and it's, of course, misunderstandings, bouncing general accusations back and forth, and it's just kind of how it goes, I guess, sometimes. But the end result is, from what I've seen, is that they are definitely on the way out of that muck. And it was about a 90-day bogging down, based largely on that the Ohio Assembly placed the pro tem speaker of the General Assembly into motion. Oh. And from what I've seen, that and I've spoken with Ohio Assembly before and other assemblies who are that far ahead, and it seems to work out well. But the vulnerability is, and it always seems to be that, is that the coordinator, being new or being overwhelmed or misunderstanding their role basically as a federation liaison to the assemblies and helping with general outreach and basically helping the influx of folks and having them welcoming them in, all of that, laying out kind of a lobby kind of environment is just not easy to do for some folks. And Christine seems to have a really great way to do those things, but that's not for every coordinator. But to lay on top of that, they've had, having a couple of coordinators transition. They also then added on, and the current coordinator trying to work through kind of feeling slighted or not appreciated. Then they had a General Assembly speaker who was also new, not new to the assembly, but new to that role, and then the people within the assembly not knowing which way to go because not long after they had set themselves up this way, the new coordinator and the seasoned Ohioan state citizen settled in as a pro tem speaker, and they just weren't ready for it. So now, 90 days that went by, and they kind of ground to a halt among business that needed to get done. So they called in Anna, and they discussed things through. So, but it took 5 hours to do that. It was pretty
But
painful. So
it's done.
So my question.
Now
Right,
they've worked
and so-
through that, yeah.
Yeah, and they're in the process. Yeah, so
Mhm.
I would imagine. I think they have about 2 weeks before they meet again, and hopefully everything's well. They also recently received a state chief continental marshal on Ohio, so that's really good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I guess, assets here, deficiencies there, assets there, deficiencies here, all those kinds of things. Anybody who's on the receiving end of those hard knocks and growing pains can benefit from taking note of those and then moving forward around them. So that would be my question here, just as a bystander here, but and as a special guest, I can comfortably approach anything regarding assembly militia, all aspects of assembly militia, and then being on behalf of the Continental Marshals, being on the receiving end of what comes out of the Jural Assembly. So this is great that you have this color coded and all as well. But later on, I'd ask if you can cue that up, Christine. I'd open up for what Justin might have to share. But Article 4400, which is on your notes as well, you kind of can cue that up.
4400.
Right. You touched on a lot of this already in your
Or
notes.
4462.
No, 4400.
44.
It was at the beginning of your, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because the emphasis in that article and what you've covered already, Christine,
Mhm.
and have been, that article touches on things regarding the court system or our court system. Things that, roughly 8% of the federal code pertains to Americans. Myself coming down with the Continental Marshals is empathizing with their role as to which questions we've had in meetings is what are those roughly 8%? Where are they coming from? If we can isolate those, there's millions of codes, but if it's 8% or on average, or 6.2% precisely, maybe, who knows, 4.2, 4.8, it'd probably be the best for justices to learn what those actual limitations are.
Okay.
And I know they're bound by international dealings, but anyway, if you can, this is only a page and a half. If you could read that.
Okay. Our court system. We say our court system in the sense of distinguishing it from their court systems. We, Americans, have our own court system, which is separate from the courts of strictly limited jurisdiction allowed to our federal subcontractors. The municipal corporations housed in the District of Columbia have their own administrative courts, that is, corporate tribunals that enforce the policies and codes of these corporations. These are in-house courts that are limited to addressing corporation officials, corporation employees, agency subcontractors, and departments within their corporations. It's somewhat confusing because there are 2 municipal corporations in the District of Columbia, and they each have different policies and codes. One set for the Federal Civil Service and its franchises serving under the Municipal Code of Washington, D.C., and one set for the military services under Federal Code. None of these codes nor any state-of-state franchise statutes are meant to generally apply to the general public. So what do we mean by generally apply? We mean that only about 8% of all federal code applies to Americans, and only when those Americans are engaged in federally regulated activities or on federal property. Obviously, the administrative tribunals of a foreign corporation have little or no business speaking to Americans, but they do so all the time. Their excuse for assuming jurisdiction over us is that our own courts have been vacated or nearly vacated for several decades. It's up to us to change that and to restore our court system. But before we can do that, we have to have a firm understanding of our own law and our own courts. And that's difficult to come by after decades of our courts standing vacant and or largely dormant. Even our system of public law, referring to ourselves as the public, has been obscured. Our case law has been reorganized and buried in archives. The first thing we have to notice about our courts is that they are courts of general jurisdiction. They are not limited as to what issues they may address and are competent to judge both the law and the facts involved in each case. Our juries have the right of jury nullification and can overturn any law that is unjust, unreasonable, or void for vagueness. The second thing we note is that our courts operate within specific limited venues when exercising their general jurisdiction. For example, our state courts only have jurisdiction within the physical borders of each state. Our county courts only have jurisdiction within the border of each county. The third thing we have to know is that our courts operate under American common law, not any of the myriad other forms of common law. And then we have to learn our law and set up our courts. Is that all? We're helped in this mammoth undertaking by having copies of Bovier's Common Law Dictionary, the only such dictionary approved by our American Congress, which I have a link on the website, but it's a PDF. It's not that, so I'll link to that, so it's a steady link. American Jurisprudence 2D, a multi-volume law encyclopedia series with over 400 topic sections covering all forms and jurisdictions of law presently in use. This resource allows us to intelligently explore topics of vital interest to us, but requires us to recognize the difference between international, national, and local law, land law and sea law, and so on. In the event that our courts are called upon to consider issues in maritime or admiralty venues, we have the multi-volume compendium. Benedict on Admiralty by Erastus Cornelius Benedict, to assist us in understanding the history, depth, beauty, power, and tradition of common law in general. We have Excellence of the Common Law. I'm not pulling it all out. By Brent Allen Winters and all his excellent workshops and seminars, as well as other publications. Again, Brent Allen Winters, we're doing Constitution on Wednesdays. Last but not least, we have magnificently succinct instruction booklet to guide us in setting up and operating a general jurisdiction common law court. Establishing the Reign of Natural Liberty, a common law training manual by Kevin Annett. And then there's a link for that. Or better still, order your copies directly from the ITCCS offices and give them the benefit of the wholesale price. This little volume gives you both the basic ideas and history of the common law, as well as straightforward instruction book telling you how to create and maintain a lawful common law court in international jurisdiction. Everything we need to know to set up our state courts. Thank you, Kevin Arnett. It's a humbling place to be as we lift ourselves up out of the mire of a purposefully engineered ignorance and restore our rightful place among the nations by restoring our American common law courts of general jurisdiction and begin the process of correction and restitution. Okay, so I need to create a little library section on the website. Well, I can put it with the read with the constitutions. Okay.
Right, and that's what I'm going to also add that, Christine, with your guidance and approval based on your work, from what Brent Allen Winters is providing. Maybe it may be the initial YouTube channel or the YouTube episode from chapter 1, and then highlight that it's an ongoing work to try to pull and garner attention to your work on behalf of everyone. That's not just the Indiana Assembly. You're taking the time to provide that for every viewer and subscriber, and that's really great. So I would add that to the Indiana Assembly on the PKTF news site as a work.
Okay.
For people to enjoy.
There's a playlist as well set up on
Right.
YouTube that's for the general.
Right.
Which I may, you know what? I'll just go ahead and section off. I'll still keep it for general education, but I'll create a separate list that's for Brent Allen Winters for each one that we work on, and start doing that. But at least for now, it's in there.
Right. And so far, I have analytics on who visits PKTF News, and so we've had hundreds on average that visits the site. So, and the word is getting around that as a free syndication platform for not only state assembly, but more specifically future county assembly development and free press reporting about counties, things that happen. You hear the good news, you hear the good news there. That's usually a popular topic, but all of that good news, as you know, comes from a county.
Mm-hmm.
Every bit of good news comes from a specific county at some point. So, in addition to that, of course, state assembly work, and just adding exposure to that. So hopefully we'll have more viewers that you're already experiencing on those works regarding excellence of common law and things from Brent Allen Winters. Can you go back up to the first page?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm just anticipating. Okay, so it says, what do we, right here it says, so what do we mean by generally apply? And then the next sentence, we mean that only 8% of the federal code applies to Americans, and only when those Americans are engaged in what I'm noticing, federally regulated activities, which right now, it's the purposeful neglect and misunderstanding that traveling is not a federally regulated activity for those who are traveling.
Yeah, because
for those who are
not
engaged in commerce, yes, this is a consistently ongoing poke in the eye of Americans, and really, at this point, insulting their intelligence. If this is the low-hanging fruit in the minds of the de facto bullying Americans, or if it's just ignorance, which I tend to lean towards that mostly, then we can, as assemblies, can really focus on that, adding substance to the Jural Assembly, and then focusing on these 8 or so percent federally regulated federal codes that may or may not apply to Americans. So, taking concerns, and then on top of jury nullification, just building on that Jural Assembly focus. We already have people that are part of the General Assembly, and then when they go from there, they're led, gently around the assembly structure itself, and see 3 other pillars, and then they check in, or they observe, and they just get comfortable as they learn the roles and responsibilities and offices and job descriptions of those elected offices, and so on and so forth. So which leads back to the first projection you had about the highlighted roles and responsibilities. So again, for me, in my role as working with the Continental Marshal Service and the Peacekeeping Task Force, again, I always go back to what the Continental Marshals are anticipating are things coming from your Jural Assembly. And so with this, and this article and what you've been working on, what some assemblies have been struggling with, it all goes back in my mind to the Jural Assembly and building that Jural Assembly. So I'd hope either Indiana, Kentucky, or any of the other states really narrow in on that justice. Somebody, that referee that is learning that role, and then preparing to, study the law, study the federal code, what applies to Americans, embracing the litigation, the research that they have, and building themselves up as justices for jury qualification. Do you know this man or woman? How well do you know them, and going through the whole process of qualifying jurors when it comes to a grand jury investigation, a trial jury hearing, all of the roles with that. And I know somebody's going to hear this call, or somebody's on it live right now, maybe clicking in their mind that this might be exactly where they might need to be, or definitely hope to be a part of regarding the Jural Assembly. So.
Yeah, that's what, when I was reading through putting this together for this evening, that's what I kept getting to, was they are so confused. They don't even realize that it only applies to if you're actually a federal or municipal employee or dependent. And then part of me is like, maybe that's why we're not seeing any, we're not supposed to see if they actually do arrest any of these people, and because that's their courts. It's not our courts, even though they did it to us. Mm-hmm. It's through their courts. It's all tribunals, so we may not ever see that. We may not have that feeling of some form of justice on that aspect.
Well, I would definitely like to attend the future town hall meeting, and I'm envisioning that as a group effort between Indiana and Kentucky. You'll have to walk me through that, Justin, as well, on that project. But I mean, as it takes shape, those meetings, that I guess they'll be open to everyone, and where they can have their questions answered in a general manner outside of the assembly, just from a town hall perspective. But I would hope that some folks would say, you know what, I heard about that Jural Assembly and that justice, and I've been doing my research more, and I think that I might be able to, take and add some shape to that, some dimension to that role, maybe even take on that role.
Well, and
Because
that
then,
town
I
hall
think
to
that's
help
where
them feel more comfortable too, that there's more there. They're not just the ones.
It seems that's where the rubber meets the road, as far as, because of the fact that, everybody having certain issues or anticipating certain issues moving forward, and while they build the assembly, at the same time they can take these just what they see in the federal code, or what they see as federally regulated activities. And as we know, the traveling aspect, being accosted on the side of the road and solicited citations, and then have to go through all of that, which is time consuming, it's stressful. There's many layers of them insisting on contracting with men and women. It's nonsense, foolish at this point. But if the Jural Assemblies are prepared to investigate those quote unquote federally regulated activities that clearly are not a commercial function taking place as men and women travel. Right. And then once and for all, they can shape their Jural Assemblies, hear the matter, investigate, and then nullify, and then place that nullification or move it to trial, and then place that presentment on the public record. As no longer are we going to be seen in this manner as, and being that low-hanging fruit, easy pickings for some folks.
Right. From
some of the municipal law enforcement officers. But anyway, I'll hold it there, because you kind of need to hear that meeting that Ohio worked on.
Yes, I definitely.
Yeah. And Justin, yeah. So let me send that to you, Justin, while you guys discuss other matters. I yield.
All right. So that was mainly what I had, and then we could go into, we were just gonna go review that, the offices. We're gonna briefly touch on treasurer, librarian, coroner aspect, or are we gonna hold off a little bit on that?
Well, I was hoping that, and again, Justin, me not being here to see what we were kind of working on, but I was kind of envisioning, Christine sharing with Justin what you would have to help alleviate, if there was an opportunity to alleviate some functions that you have that you're carrying onto some other willing Indianan, what that might be, one or two roles perhaps, and then I could see Justin sharing his perspective and his struggles as being the marshal at arms, so that someone from Indiana who may still be considering martial arms can benefit from his experience.
All right. Well, for Indiana, really the main things are having to have a chair / moderator that would be able to start taking over the main calls. Then I can focus more on the general education aspect and outreach to support from there. Then of course, which Justin's not able to bring forward, secretary. But a secretary would be great too.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, having a marshal at arms, and that's the main thing that is also a big piece that is helpful that Justin does bring, because that's bringing that the energy that we need from that role as well. And so the others will start coming. They're coming. But those are really the and of course technical support, being able to keep maintain the videos, making sure the links are all good on the website, things like that. But it's also just, a lot of it also too is it's time consuming to be able to work out those additional hats.
Now, what do you mean by secretary? Oh, go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's all right. Go ahead, I'll follow back.
Secretary. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Because that was touched upon by Anna as well, and Christine, you and I noticed that last week, that role of secretary, which we identified that as being a part of the as a committee, but there wasn't any emphasis on a secretary in the coordination realm. It wasn't. I mean, it's there, and that's kind of just what you're touching on. So, are you referring to help someone who's dealing with email distribution list and links and drawing agendas and things like that?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. Maintaining, keeping that, making sure all the pieces everybody that's presenting information stays together, and they can then put the agenda together and help from those kinds of aspects.
Yeah, and that's what I was. Yeah. And I've had many meetings where we laugh and joke. It's like, man, it'd be great to have a secretary, but that's an actual role.
It is.
in
It
the
is.
assembly.
It's a vital role, really.
It is. Very. And they have to be very detailed and well organized.
Yeah. Can I just swing around and bring up another article from this past week that Anna put out called The Great Temptation for Assembly Leaders? And if y'all would entertain me real quick, I'll just read it. It's really short.
Go ahead.
But it speaks to what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
And as well as the new member orientation. So it's called The Great Temptation for Assembly Leaders. I apologize. I don't know what article number it is, because I'm on her blog site right now, but that's the name. It says, in the Bible, Satan promised Jesus, Yeshua, the whole world, all the power and pelf of the whole world, if he would just bow down and worship Satan. This is called the Great Temptation. What we may not understand is that each of us is similarly tempted. The situation arises because people don't like the burden of their own authority. We don't really want to take responsibility for our own lives and govern ourselves. We want someone or something else to do it for us, like a surrogate parent. It's easy to see how we're bent this way. As children, we have our parents, then our teachers, then our drill instructors, then our college professors, and our bosses on the job. There is always someone in each stage of our life, cradle and grave, telling us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why to do it. When we come out of the system of things, and there isn't someone telling us what to do, and there isn't a clear hierarchy of power and a specific authority standing over us, we're at a loss. We are like ducklings searching for Mama Duck, just like you said. We get frustrated and scared. Many retirees are so nonplussed, which she comes up with some good words, nonplussed by this sudden lack of external control, that they die soon after they retire, complaining that they feel purposeless and adrift. We see the same pattern in long-term prisoners who are suddenly released from prison. They are also used to the schedule and routine of life in prison, that they can't function in the outside world. It's coming to a close. So where are you in your life? Question. Have you accepted your responsibilities as well as your rights? Have you seen the limitations of authority and the abuses of it? The leaders of our state assemblies are daily faced with great temptation as scores of new people pour through our doors seeking to claim their birthright as Americans. But they are coming to us from a hierarchy federal system and they shortly make it clear that they want modeled up. Who is in charge here? They ask bewildered. They barely taste their freedom before they want to lay it down, and they are insistent about it too. They want the assembly leadership to lead them and abhor their own natural authority because it's so unfamiliar and cumbersome. Some people overreact to the lack of authoritarian hierarchy and have delusions of grandeur. They think, oh, nobody's in charge here, so I must be king or queen. They have yet to learn their rights. They have yet to learn that their rights end where the rights of others begin. Others start wandering around aimlessly, nonplussed, and vaguely frightened. All these people want the assembly leadership to take charge, either by making themselves the assembly leadership, or by forcing others to assume the familiar role of this despot in charge. It does not immediately occur to them that they are in a different paradigm now, and that our leadership is charged with a different role and responsibility. The leaders of the old feudal federal system were trained in the foreign hierarchy model of leadership, in which the goal of the leadership was always to procure more power for the leaders. Our system is exactly the opposite. The goal of our leaders is to empower others, not to further empower themselves. When everyone is looking at you, begging you to take the burden of their power and authority from them, expecting you to exercise their authority instead, then you're facing the great temptation. It would be so easy and familiar to disempower them and exalt yourself. Look, they even want you to do it. They're begging you to do it. But, and this is the whole point, the only way that people are going to be free is if you stand your ground and force them to accept the burdens of their own responsibilities. As a member of the leadership of an American State Assembly, it's your job to empower them, not yourself. Even if being empowered is something they are afraid of, even if they beg you to make all the decisions for them, even if they bitterly complain about your lack of leadership, they will come to know the infinite gift and glory you bestowed when instead you choose to make leaders out of each and every one of them. And that's the end of it. So I appreciate y'all entertaining that. The reason I wanted to read that is not casting dispersions whatsoever. It seems like that's what every assembly is facing right now. It seems like, the coordinators, when they're really good, they get overburdened because people are so used to looking for leadership.
Yep.
And I think that's the learning curve that we're up against. And I said it a couple of weeks ago. The corporation knows their role. They know who we are. And they're waiting for us to stand up. It's up to us right now to learn who we are by researching every role and seeing what, discernment in your heart leads you to that. There's no 1-800 number for this. We are the 1-800 number. We're creating this as we go. So I'm really resonating on Anna's wanting, your new member orientations. And so I'll just put a note out there too. If you haven't seen it on the coordinator channel, somebody shared a bunch of new member orientation PowerPoint slides.
Okay.
Maybe to take it off of that later on. So I appreciate you letting me read that. I thought that was very poignant.
Absolutely.
Goes along with the discussion that you and Joe were having. Thank you.
Well, that spirit always lining things up. We couldn't do it any better.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what Joe said. Sometimes it looks from the outside looking in, if an assembly is going through what Ohio's going through, on Kentucky, just hearsay from hearing it from another coordinator on the coordinator call, you think, oh gosh, what else? Texas, Ohio, down the line. And then to hear another perspective from what Joe was saying, it is. Sometimes it takes that catalyst to make an improvement. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is, though, too, they are so used to having authority do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And do it, even though they're given a step by step and they ask for step by step. Because they're just not, they're not able to or not willing to follow they would rather let someone else take on that responsibility. And it's none of us can walk it for each other. We can't walk it for each other. We can walk together, but we can't walk it for each other. There's no way. I can't walk in anybody's role for them. I can't be there for them. I can pray for you in every moment that I have, and that's the best that I can be able to do. But until you're able to wake up and see it yourself.
And I can tell you for sure, 100%, if I wasn't already engaged in two main roles, one in particular, that being the Peacekeeping Task Force currently, but I would be with the Kentucky Assembly with bells on, striving to try to take on, for sure, one role and then learning that role.
Oh my goodness, there's so many.
And I would hope that somebody would say, yo, hold on, Joey, focus on this. And I'll be like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'm energetic, I'm ready to go, and I think I can take on two roles, but you can only wear one hat comfortably,
Yeah.
You try to put on two, it starts to look funny. I mean, you can wear two or three until they start falling off, but yeah, so
it really gets you have to, yeah.
And so I'm extremely optimistic at some point, either Indiana or Kentucky or both, someone stepping up to say, you know what, let's tackle this justice role. Let me see. Let's start from day zero, which is your launch day, move into day 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Because we see nothing but growth beyond just the General Assembly, which the General Assembly is very important, of course. But then the roles with, like we placed our self-determination on the record, and then it published and then cured. The same thing goes with the people within their Jural Assembly, coming together, researching matters that are repugnant to their Constitution as well as our natural law, and things that are perceived forcibly or ignorantly or however it is, being considered federally regulated activities, those 3 words right there is absolutely plaguing our assemblies. But the assemblies themselves realizing, hey, we can take care of this, just like we placed our political status correction on the record. We can also jury nullify things that are standing in the people's way, And so at some point, a justice will stand up, 1, then 2, then however, and then move on, and then I could be can you pull that up again, Christine? Sorry.
Yeah.
Rambo, I want to precise about the offices within the assemblies. There you go. So justices, counselors at law, I can see other people standing up, and there's plenty of people out there who are self-educated to the point where they can, counselors at law can move into at some point, can hear this recording or are considering, and they're just on the edge of their seat and making that leap forward. Like, you know what? If it's 8% of the federal code that pertains to us Americans, by golly, I'm going to find out what it is. And then they bring that to the assembly, the Jural Assembly, and they bring it everywhere else it pertains, within the assembly, and then move forward with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Coroners stepping up. Yeah.
That goes back to what Senior Chief Boss said. When he talked to the marshal on the bridge call, he said the same thing on the coordinator. Choose a role and stick to that role. Learn everything you can about that role. It's okay to dabble in other roles, so you know where you fit. But pick a role. I agree.
Yeah, and some offices naturally harmonize with other roles, like the state coordinator, and as a contingent, the marshal at arms would know that role, And now we're learning through international jurisdictions that the marshal at arms would be there with the state coordinators during their weekly coordinators call, now and in the future, That's going to be the going environment. Marshals, continental marshals, facilitating nationwide marshaled arms call. I mean, it's a jurisdictional matter. Marshals at arms coming together in the meeting with, in, in a form of a committee. But the meeting of the minds is really what it is. But they're across national, national state lines. So it's just those kinds of things. And then coordinators seem to have a very harmonious role covering down as state recording secretaries. It just fits. But there's not too many more that fits. Like Christine dealing with IT. I mean, that's sure you could if time permits, but that just depends on someone's ability to multitask and having the time available to do so. Otherwise, it's just not real. It's not a reality for most people. But I'm sure. I mean, it seems to me anybody can take on one role. For instance, in this case, justice. I'm looking right at it. There's one at the state and one at the county, and I'm rubbing my hands together in anticipation because the Continental Marshals will be on a direct receiving end of those presentments that comes from those Jural Assemblies. They've heard the matter, they've researched it, they moved it to the trial. The trial jury has heard it, and they've ruled based on the counselor at law. If there's no offending party being brought to the court, then it's not a matter of the claimant and the accused. It's the counselor at law focusing on these federal codes that do not apply to Americans, and so then they move from the jury nullifying. So there's not a lot of moving parts within the Jural Assembly in that regard. So it seems to be easy, in my mind anyway. It seems to be easy. And then you got people who really can't take on a role, but they can definitely share their 2 cents, and they're American State Nationals. They can join a litigation committee as a supporting member and just share all their ideas and gather it all together for the General Assembly to vote on. So.
Yeah, if I may on that, I think a lot of Kentucky State Nationals got really discouraged when we did this endeavor with Indiana. But right here, right now, I like to express that really the State Nationals are the backbone of our population, for lack of a better term. They're the one that make up, and they are the people, and it's us as state citizens that felt led to say, hey, I served in the military. That's why I did what I did. I served in the military. I found out that wasn't, so I just felt led to. It was a need at the time for Kentucky, and I raised my hand and volunteered. I actually recorded as a state citizen. I didn't have to do the swap, but I appreciate State Nationals more than anything because they are. Without them, I wouldn't have a role. So, State Nationals are the backbone of our population. So, any State National out there that sees this or watching now, you can still serve. You can still serve to a certain capacity on committees, and give your ideas to the committee. And that committee will bring it to the General Assembly.
Yep.
Yeah, Christine, I'm wondering. I'm just curious. I'm hearing a couple of things, but I'm not putting it together exactly. Does the Indiana? How is the General Assembly? If it was only by itself, General Assembly meetings. How is that for Indianans? Who are they American State Nationals and limited to have the floor, or are they? How does that go? I guess in addition to that, the town hall meetings. How do you recommend that?
Well,
and how does Justin? How do you guys recommend that?
Well, for Indiana, prior to the tightening up from Anna's public alert to the public notice to the assemblies, there were more that were coming to the calls, but they were coming to the calls and not actually those still wanting to commit to anything, to actually do anything. They wanted to be on the call and be known that they were on the call to say hi to everybody, and to keep up with what's going on, but And there would be a few rounds where there would be a few that were ready to step up and start doing things, but when it came time for actually making commitments, then they started backing off at that point. Because they're still in the mindset that this may be more like a church or some kind of social gathering thing. That there's not...
Or they're in the mindset that this still ain't real.
Right.
This is just some kind of another patriot movement or something.
They do not comprehend that there's actual work to be done.
So could I make a recommendation? And this is something I would, I've seen and experienced what some of these and what you've dealt with, Christine, so far. But couldn't we, with a town hall meeting, kind of bring it's not agenda driven, but at least notice to the town hall of what Indiana may be working on or Kentucky may be working on with a general focus. So it's not a General Assembly meeting, but it's an outreach / town hall meeting, which of course is open to everybody.
Right,
but
right.
With an emphasis, what is an emphasis on the Jural Assembly and the justice. And of course, this is wishful thinking on my part, but I'm seriously very, very excited on realizing the day when somebody steps up. I'm taking on that justice role, and I'll give it my all. And then they form a committee under the Jural Assembly, helping to work for the success of that justice. In other words, a committee of American State Nationals and citizens, in that regard, focusing on getting that justice and then setting him or her up for success during a town hall meeting. Because
right.
we can focus on all these roles, but if we open it up to just a general discussion and say, Indiana agrees that maybe we should start here within beyond the General Assembly and into what other assembly, maybe the Jural Assembly. Kentucky may say, let's join that effort. Let's have that discussion in a town hall setting.
Mm-hmm. That's why we've been mulling that for the longest time, because I feel with the town hall they feel less restrictions for being connected with the assembly kind of thing. They could feel like it's still an open space to be able to at least come and then maybe even speak up.
Right, and then again, Christine, you're very versatile. You could pull presentations together, even if it's quick and concise in this case, and then the distribution list between yourself and Justin here. But Justin could also moderate that as a marshal at arms. So the synergistic value and effort here in a town hall setting can expedite a 45-minute town hall meeting, no more, no less, or whatever you guys decide, and just get it out there. And then people tantalizing with discussions.
Which that would be huge for me as well, because there's been many a times where there's been a few in the call, but we get going, so it's hard for me to then focus too on the time and still also maintain the...
But I guarantee you, Justin can make sure that happens. A very strict...
I would relish in that. I'm not much of a talker, though I come on that, but I like to sit back.
Well, that's where I can help you on that aspect.
Absolutely.
We definitely have to get together and start. We've got to get this, because we can figure, now that we're going to work with free conference call, because that was, a big part of where I think that would be able to help open it up to others. To start getting. Go ahead.
So Christine, if you would, and we can end the meetings with a little bit of screen share for me on the end for kind of the Marshall site.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can see that I will be screen sharing. Okay. All right. So we have many things that takes place, one or two developments every day or every other day, or sometimes it takes a week. But we have removed the pilot program regarding the family in need in Alaska, but the donate section and the details, or at least the details section, if anybody chooses to donate, they can still. Although the unlawfully accused and incarcerated, they're out now. Okay, so now we've moved into just something we see. It's not a pressing issue, but we're kind of putting calls to action on the homepage and then starting to dial them back. But right now we're kind of taking advantage of a 90-day outreach for anybody who's interested in helping with the further build out of the PKTF news site. As you know, anybody who has a website, it's due for updating and renewing after a year. So at the end of November, the last week of November, we're up for that. So if anybody wants to donate, we're still using the same donate location for that. Okay. We can cover that, of course, but we're just, again, testing the opportunity for anybody who would choose to donate before this site goes into subscription mode. It's a monthly magazine, as you see here. Anyway, there's that. I don't want to belabor that. Anybody can read that. Now, the focus for the PKTF, it works from right to left. We do assist with assuring that all of these 3 external peacekeepers are operating properly, and that's our role and responsibility and dedication to all assemblies. But now you'll see when you go to these 3, or in addition to, you go to these 3, you'll see links that goes to further explanation and preparing presentations for future meetings with these leaders. Okay, so you can have assembly militia leadership. I'll touch on that in a moment. Also, if you go to sheriffs, this will take you to a link that in a PowerPoint snippet presentation or a PowerPoint that gets people's interest and visual on what future meetings will be for these 3. Okay, and of course, if you go here, this was the first to be added, was a link to the Continental Marshal's vetting website. I don't want to click that, but that'll take you to their site. But this one here, again, this is where the Peacekeeping Task Force begins its evaluation, education, and coordination effort. Okay, these notifiers will be gone too soon. So here's just an example of it just looks like a graph, but it's actually a PowerPoint presentation, and it's been stripped of its content just to kind of get the attention of folks. And this is just one little graphic of an animated presentation. So anybody who's listening and might be interested for Kentucky and Indiana, if you're interested in joining the Assembly Militia at some point, we will go into this actual presentation. But what I'll do is I'll actually, if I can open it up. Oh, we gotta stop screen sharing. Just to kind of show you a little bit of what we're talking about here. Stop. And again. All right, so if you can imagine someone within your assembly that says, you know what, I think I'm gonna schedule a meeting with the PKTF regarding assembly militia and the leadership. Well, this little male figure here you see would be that of doesn't wear any camouflage, doesn't have a service weapon, doesn't have any load-bearing vest or anything like that. He's just sitting there, kind of innocuous and approachable. Okay, but again, this being one slide of many starts to go into emphasis on what they would do. See if I can get this going here. Okay, so steps regarding just the brainstorming concept. Again, if I'm meeting with one or a series of assembly militia leadership, of course their questions are going to be in what posture or what approach are we with regards to militia. And our response to that is always about community. It's about community. It's not anything largely or firstly about posturing for defense or anything like that. Okay, so we move into the steps regarding step 1 would it be, and this of course brainstorming. Step 2, seek to establish baseline for learning, training, storing, and publishing all ascertained prosperity material, and that's what a librarian can provide. That's what the Continental Marshals have provided months ago, 11,000 plus material spanning hundreds of years. That is just a collection of skills and occupations, trades, things that can be done on the homestead regarding businesses learning to do anything. You can build a tractor, you can build a helicopter, you can work with electricity, you can work with anything and everything. Well, that's just one close effort one effort closer to establishing a library. And of course, they're in digital format, so the next question will be, well, how do we bind those? And that's another PowerPoint presentation regarding binding those digital works and placing them on the shelf in an American library, public in our county and even state. Step 3 would be building the public infrastructure for Assembly Militia exposure. What does that look like? You know, vertical exposure at the county level that's in cooperation with the state, you know. So you'll notice there's nothing camouflaged or nothing militant per se, or nothing to deal with beans and bullets and those kinds of things, you know. Mm-hmm. It's just building out. Step 4 here, concept, effectively compartmentalizing each array of militia, which are people's services according to each community availability. Step 5, step 6, and then we would go on and on. Of course, you're kind of getting a bird's eye or fly on the wall kind of perspective on what the Indiana Assembly Militia leadership would be having with PKTF. Of course, and you can go into other aspects about this. You can just drill around there, just get it out there. So you can see all those aspects. And again, it's PowerPoint heavy, but the PowerPoints they present themselves. It's just to help give dimension to what takes place on those future calls and the calls that we've had so far. I got one more. This is inside of one of the, I think it's under the services, under About, when you go to the PKTF news site, and go under About, and then under Services, you'll see there's 6 flip or sections, 6 book benchmarks that the Assembly Militia, if you touch them, they lift up and it says Assembly Militia. You lift all 6 of them up, it says Assembly Militia. So this is just one with respect to the enumerated rights that the constitutions have in them, and there's 10. So we lean into how the Assembly Militia leadership can embrace those rights, because I mean they're conveniently listed 1 to 10, and then they can go in and identify those rights and show our subcontractors how their rights, their corporate rights, you know, how they can function. First thing would be the press corps, and if you look at the First Amendment, there's many rights given to our subcontractors to function in that setting. Well, we can show them how, as far as free press, how that functions, the American way, you know. Then you can start to bridge. It should be posse in the third one here, but you know how to deal with the analytics of, you know, gathering data, actuating data, which is a numeric value, and all those other kinds of things. Analysts definitely needed. It doesn't really fit within the First Amendment, but you can see how you can start to bridge kind of an approach to the First Amendment, then to something that falls under a Second Amendment, which is a posse, you know, dealing with county sheriffs. And then engineering, identifying the 4 categories of engineering, which is electrical, civil, mechanical, chemical, and logistical, or the 5 here. Okay, going back to bookbinding and going back to the emphasis. So you can see how these functions are definitely not about militia, as it's been bred into the minds as a stigma into the minds of people, and then feeling to either join under, you know, levels of desperation, or to shy away from because of the pejorative that it's been made as, oh, I don't know. So, you know, all of this, it's about people and all of the services they provide on their community. Revisionist, so an approach to actual history as opposed to history, which is what that word actually means. It's a one-sided, front-loaded perspective, foregoing all other perspectives as being valid as an argument, which means to make clear. So a revisionist builds the true record, you know, or a balanced record, and that ties into the First Amendment as well. So you kind of have a blending of First and Second Amendment, just in one tethering of, you know, 8 rows. business contracting or underwriting, making clear of what is actually in the contract. Your lawful counsel can take this role, which is again not part of the 10 amendments, but it begins to blend, and this whole string of services can take on roles within their 10 amendments, and just really the American people can show how those 10 amendments can be upheld, and through the process of that show them how they show the world how these 10 amendments have been exploited. But again, this is just another presentation that we have. We have many of them, numerous actually. So your future assembly militia leaders will have these and then some as a result of scheduling meetings with us, PKTF. So, all right, sorry, I yield.
That's pretty cool. It's a good resource.
Right? That's great. That's definitely starts getting it clear as to what the roles are, and that's a lot of, nobody wants to come up with what the roles can do.
Well, what you can do is you can take those rights, and we know the American people has way more rights. They're in the meet and greet or the meeting with the Kentucky Assembly. There was a slide. It was kind of small, but it showed 20 or 25 additional natural rights that the 10 amendments, those rights didn't even touch upon. So that chain that you saw, a tethering of services or functions that a militia or the people in their communities offer, can blend into those same rights. You can take quartering, which is the Third Amendment. You can take and emphasize how the community can offer sanctuary for certain first responders, or however else, they can basically weave in and out those rights, those Bill of Rights are not the American people's rights, but they are, and we are supposed to uphold those rights. So we defend those, and we say to our subcontractors, those are the rights that you have in your incorporated realm or in an unincorporated realm. These are very suitable rights. We agree that these rights that they're useful or reasonable, and they need to be upheld. Now let the Americans show you how these rights can be so much better in the larger scheme of things when combined with corporate structure and just natural rights, So anyway, it's a work in progress. It is very tantalizing, for those who are interested in stepping up to lead your assembly militia, we'll show you exactly how it can be done, and you'll see the world just step back and say, oh, this is how the American dream can be achieved? Oh, okay, let's do this. So it goes way beyond the 10 amendments. And of course, there's 27 amendments currently, I believe, but under the original Constitution, we uphold all 3 social compacts. But we're really focused mainly on the first, and that has only 13 amendments. So it's really convenient as how it morphed and went beyond itself, beyond the 13 amendments. So the Peacekeeping Task Force, under Mayfire Compact, the Northwest Ordinance, the Articles of Confederation, the 3 Constitutions, the Declaration of Independence, and all of those, we focus on all of those. But I guess the first move forward is to focus on those Bill of Rights in addition to everything else. But because you can see that's what most people right now, these content creators out there, they kick and scream and do what they can to get the people's attention, and they focus on those rights, not really knowing who those rights belong to. So we can help them if that's where the mindset is of the people largely. All these content creators who are not with their assemblies, but they're doing what they can to at least awaken some minds, and get the minds gears rolling. Then we can meet them there. Mm-hmm. We can say, okay, let's focus on these rights. And whose are these rights? And then show them. And again, the reason why we do focus on these is because the well-regulated militia concept is within those 10 rights. So we focus on that and just branch out in every single direction, up, down, in and out, and all around. But just by emphasizing those 10 amendments. So we're having a really good time. I hope to have I hope to hear someone from the assembly or a few jockeying for that role within Indiana and Kentucky very soon.
Because we need county
We're having-
layers too.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it's about that. Yeah.
Yep.
All about that. Thanks, Christine. Thanks,
Awesome.
Justin.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anything else from either of you for the evening? Justin, maybe we need to schedule a time and hash out how to work out the town hall process. Definitely. Because that will be a huge opening for both states there.
I agree with the kickback we had from Kentucky about the whole, I think that will work out. And you'll just have to tell me a time, Christine, and I'll make available. Because I'm just on tight schedule wise and everything like that. You just tell me when you're available, what's good for you, and I will put it on my schedule.
Okay, we'll work it
Okay.
out in the next couple days to get together, and then maybe we need to even then at that point try to maybe set a regular, even if it's just a catching up on what's going on if we need any added support, but I know it's also going to get a little bit busier for both of us coming into holiday season.
Yeah.
But we can do
That's
this.
what works, right?
If you guys find me somebody for each state for your assembly militia, I got them. I'm definitely going to set them up for success.
Awesome.
And they will not be thinking about anything regarding defensive postures and firing ranges and all that. That's not going to be where we're at all.
Yeah.
It's there,
Well,
but
that's
it's definitely not first and foremost. Absolutely not.
That's what Anna mentioned at the end of the webinar last week's webinar. The last, I think, 10 minutes of that was one of the best. I think that's my opinion that she's done. It's just, we don't need all that. That's not what we need. If we try that, then they win because they have all those resources. We need to do it peacefully.
Right.
precisely-
Exactly.
That's precisely why the Federation insisted on having a umbrella, if you will, if anything, to help keep those accusations raining down on the assemblies. It's like, no, that if you need further clarity, you can reach out to the Peacekeeping Task Force, and we'll open our books and show you clearly, precisely, and ad nauseum how we are peaceful, lawful Americans, and we're here to reconstruct our assemblies. Nothing else. We wish no harm on anybody. We take no political sides whatsoever. We're here to defend our counties against any threats if they was as a last resort, defending our community assets and our prosperity. And so we don't see that. Law enforcement is already there to help defend that, so they already have that in place. We're here to now promote prosperity within our communities and to assist as an asset, as one aspect of numerous community prosperity assets.
And it's about in reverse. The anger that just brings on anger and fear anytime you think there's any kind of activity like that, and that was all false. So it's removing all of that and just coming back into reminding that, for example, part of militia is also the learning how to first aid, emergency response through the community emergency response training, right?
Well, what we found most interesting is how toxic legacy media is, and it's such a thorn. But we also notice, okay, this is very interesting. It is nonviolent, yet is just loaded with propaganda. The establishment toxifying the First Amendment by their right to provide news, media. And so we see how wretched it is, but it's coming from their right, under their First Amendment right. So the Americans could say, okay, well, let's have this friendly, competitive perspective, and we'll show you how it's done. And then we can move into providing positive aspects good news, wins, as it, however, quote unquote, and then bringing to the light what our communities offer, each county, and then our growing county assemblies and our growing county assets for communities. So, and that's all within the First Amendment. So it's really convenient for us that they've actually built their rights under a corporate setting, and we just add so much more to it. It's like, it can be so much more, but you know what? If 10 rights is what our subcontractors, how they operate, that's fine. It's been established, and we're here to protect those same rights. We have so much more, so we'll show you how it's done as far as rights go.
Right. It's awesome. It's I'm so grateful that you all have put in as much time to do the work, the study, and only you could do it. Nobody could open up your head and pour it in. I mean, I remember Charlie Brown of sleeping on the stack of books. I think it was Charlie Brown, and he was going to learn from osmosis, and you have to have those times of just diving into it and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
That's where
Find
that
it in your heart to
discipline.
make the time.
Mm-hmm. If it's
Don't put
important to
yourself
you,
the information.
if it's important to you, you'll find it. You'll make the way. You'll make the time. If it's that important to you, just like with anything else in your life, if whatever is important, even though it's something new that's come into your life, which this is not new, but it's making you more focused and aware as to what's actually going on. It's just helping you to see through that. Stop accepting the lies. And be willing to go ahead and be truthful. There's more people out there telling the truth now, so you don't have to worry about that.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's the hard part, is standing in the truth even though everybody else is not. That's tough.
That's the society we're in, unfortunately.
Especially when it's your own family that looks right at you like, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, they'll be on the receiving end of these efforts too.
Yep, absolutely. I'm fortunate with my family, though. They know me well enough that when I'm so headstrong anyway, that when I get into something, they know. I'm either going to figure out real soon it's not for me, or I'm all in. So that's where, they know. That's Mom.
That's a good perspective too. It's similar to that in my family. Because I'm not one for hobbies. I've always been geared towards work.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a hobby that's unique, and it's built on education and professional talk and time for meetings, and many people. I can see my family members over my shoulder seeing faces with names from states from all over, and that's something unique for them. And they admire from a distance
mm-hmm.
of what's taking place.
Right.
And they do ask questions afterwards. It's few, but those questions few and far between, but they're growing. That's just been my experience with family members.
But we're walking it, so they're always going to see that example, that light.
Staying peaceful with them. Don't prove them right.
Mm-hmm.
That type.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Worst thing we can do. Yeah.
And there's many times where I'm like, just breathe. I love you.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, so Christine, you just let me know what works best for you, and then shoot it to me. I'll look at my schedule, and then we'll make something work out.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, let's try to work on that. What is today? Is Monday. We're
Hey,
still adjusting to the third shift here. Okay, so, are you?
I could do Friday and just skip the bridge call this week.
No. I'm not. Okay. I'm not willing to let you do that. Albeit that would be time you already had carved out. I get that, but we all need that. We need you there for that. 'Cause I'm counting on you to start bringing stuff back for Indiana info on that as well. That would be very supportive. So, all right. So, but weekday or weekend better for you?
It's bad. There's no good. I'm sorry. Just like I said, probably weekend. If you want to be honest, probably a weekend.
Okay. So how about so I will then get with you for the weekend.
Okay.
And we'll be able to
Alright.
work that out. Okay. Cool, dear.
And I will be there.
Okay. Sounds good. And we'll work in buffers. So if time wise, because we know things happen, so we'll work in buffers to be able to make sure we can still work there. Okay, sounds great.
Hey guys, and remember on the December 7th, the Federation is hosting a coordinators revamping and updating of coordination roles. I don't know who's all invited to that, but that'd be a really great opportunity. And I don't know if the replays will be available for those who are not in attendance, but I'd like to be able to just listen in on that, of course.
Absolutely. We'll
anyway.
we'll see how that is. I mean, I'm imagining I'm part of that.
Yeah, and it's for several weeks. I think it's
to January 11th. Let's see.
Like 6 weeks. Or
Is this something the coordinator?
January 11th. Anna is starting a separate training for coordinators. December 7th through January 11th, 6 p.m. Central was the one. I'm not sure. We got to make sure, verify on the time, but
5 weeks.
so I would imagine it's only going to be Thursday evenings on that, not like a. So Thursday evening starting December 7th through January 11th.
That's a really great opportunity for those who might be interested to take on that role. But in your case,
rebroadcast.
Yeah. Well, for Indiana's case, for co-coordinators, for you, Christine, and
Right.
for a Kentucky coordinator, it's a really great opportunity. And you're going to get cutting edge, up to date from the Federation.
But I think the only ones able to come to the call are going to be coordinators and co-coordinators, maybe even past coordinators. I think is what the email said, but I'm not sure about recordings afterwards as to how that goes yet.
I'm looking at the coordinators channel. Just one more thing. Tennessee, Maureen O'Brien on Tennessee is appointed to share the organization license. Just 3 weeks. They just got pinned.
Oh, I can't look anything up right now because it'll show on the YouTube part. It doesn't show it because I have to do the whole display in OBS for YouTube, so it will show the Zoom. So I can't check anything in the background. But I will get into Mattermost later on. That's another thing that needs to be, I haven't really brought out, because I need to know a little bit more. I think we're going to transition away from Mattermost.
Yep.
And so not that information is lost. It's supposed to still be able to be archived there, right? And then, but we're going to a new platform. I've put the request in for my access, but I'm not sure yet much more on that at this point. But
yeah, the data management server will be salvaged, and that's for all documents and everything, past and present.
That's state citizens and state nationals that have access to it if they need it. So
yeah,
right, because there is a lot of valuable information that was put out
especially
there.
Mochi there.
yeah.
Yep.
And if you're wanting
and the litigation committee.
Yeah. If you're interested in a role, they've got the martial art bridge calls posted. It's all recordings.
Right.
All right. I'm going to have to hop off here. It's getting to...
Yes. I gotta give time before my husband goes in for his shift tonight, so make sure we took care of dinner and maybe can catch
Thank
a
you.
short movie. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much,
Thank-
and we'll be next week's call is the 20th of November, 6 p.m. Central. We're adjourned till then. See you all
Thanks
on
for
the
the
next
platform,
call.
Christine.
Peace and love.
Yeah, peace.
Recording stopped.